It is incredible. We knew something was going to happen in New England, and it finally did. I think the most unique thing, and you and I had talked about this a couple of last 2 weeks on our podcast, John, was how do you handle a transition gracefully with a guy that's done what that guy's done? And New England did. New England decided they reached the end of the road with Bill Belichick. They decided to let him leave without compensation. Belichick agreed to not ask for any of the remaining $25 million on his contract. So in essence, they're parting ways peacefully and rightfully so. I think there was a little bit of surprise because Belichick had dropped hints, want to coach, dropped hints, willing to give up power. I think there was surprise that Robert Kraft said, clean piece of paper. So Belichick, it's an era that we will never, ever see again. On his Hall of Fame plaque, they will write 24 years with the Patriots, 333 career wins, 31 wins in the toughest time of the year, NFL playoffs, 6 Super Bowl rings, 9 times in the game on Sunday, 17 AFC East titles. He says he will coach next year. It'll be his 50th year in the National Football League. I think he's going to wind up in Atlanta, and I think it's going to happen really quickly. But, history will write about the X's and O's and his roster building, his teaching, his education, the Patriots way. And then this afternoon, Tom Brady texted out a message thanking Belichick, indicating, I would not be where I got had it not been for you.
Yeah.
And Brady telling the whole world, Belichick was the king of creating greatness. He molded teams to take on the challenge of having to be the best team to win these games. So Brady just applauded who Belichick was, not just as a coach, but as a person, as a person that influenced young men and his leadership. So, it's going to be a strange feel. It'll be very interesting to see where they go. Hot name is the linebacker that they kept in-house. Jared Mayo did not let him interview other places. He is a defensive coordinator. He might be the heir apparent. Or Mike Vrabel from Tennessee, who just got bounced, who was with Belichick, played for Belichick, and is, I think, a sharp guy. I would think those two will be fascinating to see who they hire as a general manager, because they're obviously going to realign the whole hierarchy, the organizational chart.
Yeah.
It'll be very, very different. And I do think Belichick is going to resurface quick. And everybody tells me it might be with Arthur Blank in Atlanta.
This is incredible. All of these big names suddenly out on the free market. Now, when Belichick does his press conferences, he's kind of,
dour.
Yeah. Is that really him, or is that kind of an act that he pulls?
It's both.
Okay.
I've interviewed him a couple times. It was weird. Again, I'm wired differently, so go ahead. You can bang on me. A couple times I've interviewed him. He was great. But I wasn't asking him for secrets of your formation or your defense.
Mm-hmm.
But you talk history, you talk football, people, you talk about talent and people who influence the game. He just opens right up. But I feel bad for the guys that cover the Patriots because he's just dour and dark all the time. And I think he struggled as the game changed. Of course, they didn't have a quarterback. That's a big issue. This is a quarterback's league. But I also hold him accountable for a lot of bad drafts. I hold him accountable for being unwilling to give marquee players marquee free agent money, because New England has not been that type of franchise. But in terms of X's and O's, my favorite phrase, and I had quarterbacks tell me this, you come to the line of scrimmage, your pre-snap read in a game against New England. Do you believe what you see? Because when you snap the ball, what comes at you might be very different from what your pre-snap read was.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And I think it takes a unique intellective player to be able to play Belichick's system. So he was spectacular. Now,
the question, do you think his brand is tainted because of Deflategate and the spying and all this other nonsense that's going on?
It's going on there, then it's probably going on other places. But no, I don't think so, because he did it for so long and was so successful. Granted, Brady was the trigger man in this whole thing. And I think their record since Brady retired is 28-38.
Mm.
But Creative genius, just amazing. Now we'll see if he can reinvent himself if he winds up with the Atlanta Falcons or the Washington Commanders. The other guy who vacated, and I didn't expect this, was Pete Carroll. 14 years. He had said Monday, the season-ending press conference, he wanted to coach a year 15. And he had overseen a roster rebuild. He had overseen, obviously, the big quarterback change, the Russell Wilson trade, the arrival of a journeyman, Geno Smith. They just never got this thing back together again in Seattle. It kind of blew up in their face. They took some gambles on player acquisitions that did not pan out. He kind of brought some bad citizens and troubled guys in, and it didn't work. Now, his record in Seattle is 137-89, but they had personality issues on the field. They had salary cap issues. They had injury issues. They had hot and cold quarterback play. And once the Legion of Doom, which was the defense of Russell Wilson's Super Bowl team, once that Legion of Doom got old, the Richard Shermans of the world left the NFL, they just never replaced him with the same type of player. And then some of the people they brought in, Jamal Adams, a safety from the Jets, just seemed to be trouble waiting for to happen on the field, off the field, etc. So I was a little bit stunned. He wants to coach. You know, they said he's going to be a consultant. He wants to coach.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm king and I'm running the Chargers, I'm going to interview Harbaugh and I'm going to interview Pete Carroll. And then I'll interview whomever else might be out there. But these guys have now pushed their way to the forefront of must-have interviews. So fascinating. So your response in Seattle?
Yeah, I was surprised by the whole thing. Pete Carroll is a very likable guy. Whenever he's interviewed, you kind of like him. But I know the Seattle fans have been really frustrated with him and some of his decisions he's been making with the team. I mean, what's your angle on that?
Well, they've gone through transition. It's honest. All honesty, Geno Smith is not Russell Wilson at quarterback. That's an issue.
Yeah.
They got 3 wide receivers. They're paying them a lot of money. Tough to catch bounce passes in the NFL. And those guys, led by DK Metcalf, have had a lot of injury problems. They've gone through a monster number of running backs. All of them got hurt, including the Aztec, Rashad Penny.
Yeah.
It took them forever to reload the offensive line. This year, they had a good offensive line. It's the first time in about 4 or 5 years. And the defensive side of the football team has just been constant turnover, etc. And they never, ever really adequately replaced the Legion of Doom. I think he did a good job, but it's not the same player personnel roster. And I think you add into that injuries, and then you add into that some attitude issues too.
How old is Pete Carroll?
He's 72 going on 52.
Yeah, he does look really young.
Oh, he's a firebrand.
Yeah.
He's storming up on the sidelines and running stadium steps before the game. And
that's incredible.
He's one of the more unique guys I've ever met in the NFL. I enjoyed my interaction with him when I was doing talk show radio, and he was at USC. And, of course, the job he did at Southern Cal with the Trojans for that group of years in the Reggie Bush, Matt Leinart era, just absolutely spectacular. So we got those coaches. We'll see where this thing goes going forward. Hey, we get to halftime.